There are right ways to worship, and there are wrong ways to worship. You see, worship is a ship, and just like any other ship, sometimes the captain has to take the wheel and steer it on the right course. Well, it's your captain here, the Reverend Clark Tedman, ready to show you what kinds of worship are unacceptable. First of all, bowing down. I've seen some crazy religions in the world doing this. But what do we expect? They're foreigners. I mean, they're not even smart enough to speak English. Should Christians do this? Let me ask you this. Does God like you more because you hide your face from Him? Back in my day when I was courting a pretty lady, I did not interpret it as a good sign if she hid her face from me. Not at all. And if I had created a people as God did, I wouldn't want them to hide the best part of themselves in the dirt and stick the worst part of themselves up in the air. And speaking of up in the air, how about these worshipers that think they have to have their hands up in the air while they're worshiping? You know what you look like? You look like preschoolers who need to use the restroom. So, go. You're excused. Maybe you'll feel better when you come back. And why do worshipers feel like they have to swaying back and forth? You know, the Bible says, do not be swayed by every wind of doctrine. But that's what you look like, blades of grass, swaying, blowing in the wind. It's probably grass you were smoking before you came to worship. I mean, you'd have to be on the marijuana to act like that. That brings us to clapping. Clapping. If God intended our hands to be percussion instruments, He'd have put little cymbals on our fingers and made our thumbs into maracas. Yeah, you keep beating your hands together and you won't be able to write a check to my ministry. That's Reverend Clark Tedman Ministries, P.O. Box 221, Gum Lick, Alabama. But never mind all that now. The only reason to clap is because you feel that the church organ isn't good enough. Oh no! Church organ, the only acceptable instrument to God in the Bible, is not good enough for this generation. Oh, they've got to have rhythm. Rhythm, the downfall of the human race. Rhythm was invented in Africa by the communists for the express purpose of corrupting our society. That's right. The Russians had laboratories out in the jungle, and they asked themselves the question, what would be the best way to bring down God-fearing America? And the answer was clear and simple. Rhythm. You see, rhythm is actually a Russian word. Look closely at my chart here of Russian words. Such words as Gdansk and Kislik and Kosov and Rzv and Kvorts and Zbr and I don't know what all. What do they all have in common? Way too many consonants and not enough vowels. Now look at the word rhythm. 5 consonants and 1 vowel. And look at the vowel that it is. On top of that, it's a Y. A letter of the alphabet doesn't know what it wants to be. Vowel, consonant, like Michael Jackson. And what's this H here? Rhythm. There's no H in that rhythm. I'll tell you what that H is. It stands for hell. Because rhythm ultimately leads to the most vile, decadent, satanic activity known on the planet. Dancing. That's right. Dancing. First of all morality aside, most people should never ever try to dance. Your bodies don't look good standing still, let alone gyrating and twisting like a kite on a string. And this modern dancing is not so much dancing as it is convulsing. These teenagers today look like an octopus hooked up to jumper cables. And now to think that dancing has made its way into godly worship. You know, the Lord said, be still and know that I am God. He did not say, prance around like Richard Simmons and know that I am God. Do you think this glorifies God? I think it only angers the people around you that God made arms and legs for you to flail about like a lunatic. And where does dancing lead to? I'm not going to pull any punches. If you're going to dance in worship, why don't we have hotel rooms in the adjacent hallways so that you can continue your Beelzebub ballet horizontally? That's right. I believe that hell is one giant dance floor with a mirrored ball and a strobe light, and Lucifer himself as the DJ, playing such hits as Great Balls of Fire and Disco Inferno, and all you worship dancers trying to get your groove on with charred stumps for limbs. Where will I be? up in heaven around the great white throne, worshiping God in the only way he finds acceptable, by sitting still and quiet with a hymn book in my hand in my own pew. Well, you've been warned. I'm Reverend Clark Tedman, and I'll tell you where all the demons are hiding.